ようこそ砂と黄金の国エジプトへ。はいどうも、お初にお目にかかります。地球上のすべての生きとし生きるものの嫌われ者キモイマン37と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。というわけでして、今回ですねお送りさせていただきますタイトルはこちら、アサシンクリードオリジンズディスカバリーツアーというわけでして、今回で動画本数的に言うと6本目ですね。はい、今回もね楽しく、レーダー君とともにこのエジプトのね、この広大な世界を、楽しく旅をすることができたらいいなと思っております。よろしくお願いいたします。で、ですね、こちらのディスカバリーツアーですね、やらせていただくときは、毎回ノーマイクでね、やらせていただいておりますので、今回もノーマイクでやらせていただきたいなと思います。また、終わりしらにですね、ご挨拶の方させていただきたいなと思いますので、何卒ご理解ご了承のほどよろしくお願いいたします。で、今回ですね、旅していくポイント、場所はこちらですね。このそうですね、アレクサンドリアのここですね、ここって言ってわかんないんだけど、ここをね、今回やっていきたいなと思います。で、今回ね、これが終わったら、ちょっとね、移動するんですが、ここ、マリオティス湖ですね。これまだ3箇所残ってるんで、こういうのをね、ちょっとやっていきたいなと思います。では、また後ほど、See you soon. バイバイ。
Welcome to Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra VII Theophilopator ascended the throne in 51 BCE at the age of 18. Though her early attempts to maintain power were often challenged, she eventually prevailed and became the sole ruler of Egypt. According to Plutarch, she was the only Ptolemaic pharaoh to speak the Egyptian language. Her intelligence, coupled with a good education and a great political mind, allowed her to make the alliances necessary to maintain the independence of Egypt while Rome was becoming a Mediterranean empire. It is important to understand that Cleopatra's knowledge of Egyptian language and keen understanding of the culture allowed her to make powerful ideological reference that resonated with ancient Egyptians. By associating herself with the goddess Isis, the divine mother, great of magic, and repository of divine essence, Cleopatra firmly established herself as the protector of the two lands and legitimized her place on the throne. Upon his death in 51 BCE, Ptolemy XII Aulus bequeathed his kingdom to his daughter and eldest son, Cleopatra VII and Ptolemy XIII. As was custom, the siblings were married. The new pharaoh was 10 years old, his sister wife 17. The early years of their reign were not easy. Between 50 and 48 BCE, droughts and floods aggravated Egypt's problems. General Achilles and the royal advisor Pothinos kept intervening in the young ruler's political decisions, and eventually colluded to turn Ptolemy XIII against Cleopatra. By 48 BCE, Cleopatra was in exile. During Cleopatra's exile, the Roman Empire was not without its own internal conflict. Caesar and Pompey were at war with one another, and after his defeat in 48 BCE, Pompey fled to Alexandria in the hope of finding refuge. This turned out to be an unwise decision. Listening to his advisors, Ptolemy XIII elected to have Pompey assassinated, his head kept as a gift in the hopes of acquiring Caesar's favor. This gambit backfired. Instead of earning approval, the murder of a Roman greatly angered Caesar. Cleopatra, aware of Caesar's anger against Ptolemy for the murder of Pompey, decided to take advantage of the situation. She returned to Egypt in secret, hoping to establish an alliance with one of the most powerful men of the time. Outside of the legend, where she had herself smuggled into his quarters in a carpet, what exactly happened during that fateful meeting remains a mystery. However, Caesar seemed to see a better ruler for Egypt in Cleopatra than in her young and too easily influenced brother. Invoking Ptolemy XII's will, Caesar attempted to mediate peace between the siblings. Ptolemy XIII was enraged by the turn of events, and his advisors were none too happy to see Cleopatra return. Urged on by General Achillas and Pothinos, the young pharaoh plotted against Caesar and Cleopatra, resulting in the siege of Alexandria in 47 BCE. It was in March 47 BCE that Caesar defeated Ptolemy XIII's forces. The young pharaoh drowned in the Nile after having fled the battlefield. With her opponents dead or powerless, Cleopatra married her other much younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and finally claimed the throne of Egypt for good. The end of the Alexandrian War also cemented the romantic and political alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar. In June of 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, whom she called Caesarion. Caesar did not accept the boy as his heir, choosing instead his nephew Octavian. Nonetheless, on his return to Rome, Caesar invited the queen and her brother husband to stay in the city. Her presence still drew much disapproval from the Senate. Always a strategist, Caesar left 4 legions in Egypt, and a man he trusted to direct Egyptian affairs, giving him control of the wheat supplies essential to Rome. Cleopatra and her entourage remained in Rome until March 44 BCE, when Caesar was murdered. Caesar's most faithful ally, Mark Antony, often visited the Queen of Egypt during his stay in Rome. Unlike most, he recognized the legitimacy of Caesarion, the natural son of Caesar. Antony knew he would need the riches of Egypt in order to fight Octavian and claim the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, in return, saw a powerful ally. In the winter of 41 BCE, she arranged a sumptuous tour of Egypt by boat to show Antony the wealth of her country and the power she held as its ruler. A romantic and political relationship followed. The Roman Senate was once again most displeased. To calm spirits in Rome, Antony married Octavia, sister of Octavian. Despite his marriage to Octavia, Antony remained Cleopatra's lover, and she gave birth to their children. Cleopatra increased her kingdom's territory and started a political propaganda alongside her lover in Egypt and beyond. She hoped to create a Ptolemaic federal empire with Alexandria at its center. Antony eventually repudiated his Roman wife for the Egyptian queen, much to the dismay of the Roman elite. However, while Mark Antony focused on Egypt, Octavian carefully gained military and political ascendancy over him in Rome. Octavian managed his own propaganda campaign and succeeded. The Roman people hated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. To avoid the censure still inherent in attacking a fellow Roman, Octavian simply declared war against Egypt. Rome's power still reigned supreme. The powerful Egyptian fleet, led by Cleopatra as well as Mark Antony's forces, were defeated in 31 BCE in Actium. Octavian arrived in Egypt in 30 BCE to formalize his victory. The following events remain difficult to confirm due to the many versions and legends around them. It is believed that after hearing a rumor about Cleopatra's suicide, Mark Antony committed suicide himself. He was brought to the queen as he slowly passed away. Knowing that Octavian would have her chained and paraded through Rome in defeat, Cleopatra planned her own suicide. She most likely killed herself with arsenic, though admittedly, the version where she uses an asp to deliver a fatal bite may be considered more dramatic. What happened to the body of Cleopatra is still a mystery.
Welcome to The Importance of Mummies. The first hieroglyph for embalmer appeared in pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom. It is likely that embalming was a trade that progressed alongside the evolution of ancient Egyptian funeral practices. While we still know nothing of how embalming came to be a profession, we do know that embalmers had a hierarchy, and that each embalmer specialized in a specific phase of the mummification process. The mummification techniques were jealously guarded by embalmers from generation to generation. Despite their efforts, Herodotus and Diodorus discovered their methods in late antiquity. but historians were skeptical about the validity of the texts. It remained a mystery until two teams of modern medical legal scientists confirmed the process in 1994 and again in 2011. The Uabet, meaning the pure place, was where the embalmers mummified the bodies of the deceased. Until the end of the Middle Kingdom, it was located in tents at the edges of the city due to the smell of decomposition. In the New Kingdom, however, the Uabet was located within the city limits, though still in open-air spaces. In the same way that the practices and techniques of mummification evolved, so possibly did consideration towards embalmers within ancient Egyptian society. The pharaoh had access to the most elaborate of mummification rituals. The richer citizens of Egypt also enjoyed complex embalming options, though none of them allowed for the removal of the brain or viscera. After purifying the body, embalmers injected a liquid through the rectum, sealed it, and allowed the mixture to settle. They then plunged the body into natron for up to 40 days. Once the body was dried, the seal was removed, and the entrails flowed out with the injected liquid, leaving the skin and bones of the deceased to be wrapped in linen and returned to the family for burial. The least costly embalming option was for the embalmers to simply inject a product called surmaya and immerse the body in the natron for up to 40 days before handing it over to the family. For all those who could not afford any embalming process, desert burials offered a pauper's alternative to preserve the bodies of the dead. Egyptian civilization has always appealed to Westerners, even before the Greek and Roman invasions. As early as the Middle Ages, mummies discovered by travelers were often sent back to Europe. Curio cabinets, dating from the 16th and 17th centuries, usually included pharaonic artifacts in their collections. The Egyptomania phenomenon was heralded by Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian campaign, which lasted from 1798 to 1802. The following years were marked by a resurgence of interest from rich enthusiasts and scholars who exposed Egypt to the general populace. Many research societies focusing on Egyptology were founded during those years. By 1868, mass tourism began in Egypt under the aegis of the Cook Agency. The rich would indulge in leisure trips to Egypt and bring back mummies. Upon their return, they would organize evenings that consisted of unpacking mummies and removing strips of linen and amulets layer by layer. These were considered the shining cultural events of the season. The Egyptian collections of many a museum were founded as a consequence of this mass pillaging. Thanks to those dubious parties, the fantasy of a mummy coming back to life, seeking revenge on its defilers, was born. The mummy malediction myth has remained steady in popular culture ever since, particularly in written media and cinema.
はい、というわけでして、今回ですね、切りも良さそうなので、この辺で終了させていただきたいなと思います。ここまでご視聴いただきまして、誠にありがとうございました。そして、ここまでお付き合いくださいまして、お疲れ様でした。ありがとうございました。今回ですね、2箇所でしたね。ここと、で、さっきのね、アレクサンドルのね、ここでしたね。はい。いやー、なかなかね、やっぱ広いんでね、まだまだ、動画の数的にはね、まだまだ増えるなーっていうね。まあでも、自分のね、ごめんなさい、結構ね、なんていうんですかね、その、暇つぶしっていうかね、結構作業 BGM 代わりに自分のこの動画、このディスカバリーツアーをね、再生っていうか見ることがあるんで、そういう意味ではね、結構このコンテンツは非常にね、優れたいいコンテンツだなと思いますね。見てよし、で、音として聞いてもよしっていうね、なかなかおすすめかなと思います。はい。で、自分ですね、これ以外にも他にもシリーズ動画ですね、いくつか出させていただいておりまして、ウィッチャー3ワイルドハント、ファイナルファンタジー15、狼絶景版に、死因ですね。で、あとザ・シルバーケースと出させていただいております。で、それ以外にですね、ブロードキャスト配信なんですが、ホライゾンゼロドーン、新三国無双8、で、ファークライ5に、バットマン、アークマンアサイラムなどやらせていただいております。で、ブロードキャスト配信させていただくにせよ、今回みたいにね、動画をアップさせていただくにせよ、必ず事前に自分がやらせていただいております、ツイッター等でね、ご報告させていただいております。毎回動画説明欄にですね、自分がやらせていただいております、各種 SNS の URL をリンクっていう形でもって貼らせていただいております。お気の方が向きになれましたら構いませんので、もしよろしければぜひ、そちらの方もチェックされてみてください。よろしくお願いいたします。で、今回ですね、奇跡的にもこちらの動画をご視聴くださった方の中でね、自分みたいなのもいいなと思っていただけたらでに構いませんので、チャンネル登録、あとの動画の高評価等ぜひよろしくお願いいたします。というわけでして、今回、少々世紀マイマン37がお送りさせていただきました、アサシンクリードオリジンズ、ディスカバリーツアーですね、動画本数的に言うと6本目ですね、これで終了させていただきたいなと思います。で、ですね、毎回ですね、動画を出させていただくときは、2本ずつ、出させていただいておりますので、次回は7本目、あるいは8本目ということで、よろしくお願いいたします。改めまして、ここまでご視聴いただきまして、誠にありがとうございました。そして、ここまでお付き合いくださいまして、お疲れ様でした。ありがとうございました。また次回、あるいは別な動画にて、皆様にお会いできることをお楽しみに、今回これで失礼させていただきます。ありがとうございました。バイバイ。